Hey everyone, it's Dawn here, and I have been watching a couple of times and listening to this TikTok that a lot of people think was posted by Bryan Kohberger, who is the gentleman who was arrested in Pennsylvania for the murder of the 4 students in Idaho. And so I'm just interested. I'm not going to show the video, the TikTok video. I want to listen and I want to tell you what my impressions are. And I would love for you to tell me what you think. And the reason I'm not showing it is because the person who recorded this TikTok video wasn't really showing his face directly. He did show himself, and I think probably intentionally, and in a reflection on his laptop. He was recording from his phone, I think. And so there are a lot of people out there looking at the images to see if it matched his photographs and the images of Bryan Kohberger. I'm not really going to get into that, but I want to go over what he says. So if you're interested in this, click the like button. Let me know in the comments what you think. I'm not doing this as a live stream for a variety of reasons, but let's get to it. It's about a 5-minute video. So let's see if we can, and there's a couple things I noticed. So I want to share those with you, and maybe you can tell me what you think. And I think this is interesting because I think communication is important. I think it's important to be observant with who we communicate with. Hopefully we're not communicating with anyone regarding a crime, but in any case, it's a great learning tool, and that's where my interest lies. So here we go.
I just want to let you know that I'm a relative of someone inside the investigation into the quadruple homicide.
So first of all, this person said they are a relative of someone who was inside the investigation into the quadruple murder of the 4 students, obviously quadruple, who were murdered in Idaho.
In Idaho. I don't want to be any more specific than that because I don't want to put anybody in a challenging or contentious situation regarding.
So he's saying, I don't want to be more specific than that because he doesn't want to put someone in a challenging or contentious position. But he might say, I mean, if this is really true, what I might say is, I'm not going to tell you who I am because I don't want to put my relative who's involved in this investigation at risk in terms of their own integrity and possibly losing their job. So that's my first clue.
Their continued employment. And I will say what I'm about to tell you is secondhand, but it is from what I believe to be a very reliable source. Again, this can only be considered a rumor as I don't have firsthand knowledge. I never planned on posting any of this information out of respect for the victims' families.
So he's saying that, and he did give a shout out to, he might not want to put this person at risk for his future employment. I don't know why he's saying future employment, but okay. But he's also now saying he's doing it out of respect. He's also considering he might not do this out of respect for the murder victims and their families.
However, now that one of the victims' fathers has released some of the gruesome details himself, I'd like to share some of the investigative theory.
So he's saying he feels that ethically he can go ahead and do this because of what the father released about his daughter, which is interesting. What do you think? So this is his justification for putting this TikTok up, even though he said he really probably shouldn't have done it because, he doesn't want to put his relative and his job in the investigation of the murder at risk. So here we go.
As you know, the 2 women were found in the same bed, but with similar wounds. That's what's being reported.
So as we know, the women were in the same bed. Now, not everybody knows that, and that's not necessarily fact if we do know that as of yet. So right away, he's saying, okay, I'm just telling you things that you already know here. Oh, that's what he's trying to say.
That's not exactly 100% true, at least in regard to the fact that they hadn't fallen to sleep in the same bed.
All right. So he's disputing this information that everybody should already know because it was released that the two girls were in the same bed. And now for some reason he thinks this is important. So, okay, let's see what he has to say. Not sure why that would be important, but let's see.
One of the victim's wounds were deep gouges that were delivered with extremely aggressive force, so much so that the victim's liver and lungs were destroyed. Here's the theory that's happening. They definitely think it was a man.
They definitely think it was a man. So they definitely and think are two different things. You can say something is definite, or you can say I think something, but those two things are actually contradictory. And by the way, I just want to go on record as saying, in terms of this gentleman's voice and his affect, he reminded me somewhat of the same affect that Leslie Jordan had. Do you know who Leslie Jordan is? He actually passed away last year in 2022. He was a comedian and a beloved in his older age. And he was from Tennessee. He didn't have a strong Southern accent, but just so you know, his affect reminded me a little bit of Leslie Jordan.
Because of the force of the wounds, the murked person must have been very strong. They think.
So this is information that's probably not too hard to figure out, that whoever did this had some sort of strength, because, I mean, he stabbed 4 people to death.
The man came into the room after doing what they did on the second floor. They went upstairs. The person cleanly and quietly. Now, I'm not saying I think this was
the person who committed the murder. Let's just put it that way. I'm thinking maybe this is a person who is putting himself in their shoes, if not the person who did it, because evidence would not necessarily be able to, if this person is getting this information from somebody involved in the investigation, this is not solid. This is something you could surmise, but it's not evidence.
I'm unalive to the first victim.
And he mentions they unalived the first victim. He didn't say they killed. They didn't stab. They didn't murder. No, there isn't much further away than you can get from saying what happened than saying that he unalived the victim. Pretty interesting choice of words.
The second victim awoke and tried to run.
Now, how would he know that the second person awoke and tried to run? Now, tried to run, probably that there would have been evidence of that, but how would he know when they awoke? And by the way, he says awoke, not woke up, but that's interesting. Just something I would note if I were anywhere nearly qualified to.
The man, they believe that the man possibly grabbed her, and she screamed loudly.
So he started to say the man grabbed her, but he stopped himself and said they think the man grabbed her.
Apparently.
And then he just to clear what he just said, he added in apparently.
The man then harmed her.
And he says the man harmed her. He didn't say stabbed her, murdered her, attacked her, went after her. Nope, he harmed her. Just like the other one was unalived, this one was harmed. Now, I don't know that would be, if I were describing a brutal murder, that would be my choice of words. What about you? What would you use?
And the reason the wounds were of such force, he was delivering it quickly and forcibly.
Okay, this is interesting. So he starts to talk about the reason the wounds were, to describe the wounds like somebody in the investigation might be privy to that information from the coroner, the medical examiner. But then he switches to the murderer and what they were doing. not the victim or the wounds. So he has a hard time staying on his story here.
To quiet her, which I apologize for how I know it's disturbing, but anyway.
So he's acting like he's going to talk about the wounds, but then he's saying the murderer did this to quiet her. Again, implying some kind of insight as to what the murderer was doing very specifically at the time.
How do we know that she screamed? Because 3 individuals reported hearing a scream between 3:45 and 4 o'clock. That's why the police have such a specific time frame as to when the murders occurred.
Now, he said, how do we know she screamed? As if there was only one person who screamed at this time, not they screamed. He's talking up until this point about 2 stabbings. So now he's getting into the timing, and of course it is public knowledge about the screams being heard. However, he's not coming at it from any kind of insight into the investigation that would not be known to the public. So this is already known to the public.
Because I don't know if you noticed, but the authorities weren't called the next day until late in the morning, yet they had a very specific time frame when the murder happened. They think the scream is why.
That doesn't make any sense. But let's get on with it, and I'll tell you why I think that it's a little bit longer, but just think about what he just said.
And after reviewing video files from the neighborhood, they reviewed security cameras in the area, and they have an audio file where I haven't heard it, but I was told that you could clearly hear a loud scream from a female. That scream was recorded at exactly 3:38 a.m.
Okay, so now again, he's saying they have an audio file where a scream was heard, but he's saying, wait a minute, I know that he came upon this information. This is not public information, that this is known, because again, we're operating out of the assumption that he said, my relative is in part of this investigation, and this is where I got this information.
Neighbors say they didn't call the police because they said there's often loud noise coming from the house. I was told that there are parties there all the time. Again, I don't know if that's true, but it's what I was told.
Okay, so this is what I think makes what he's saying questionable to me, is he's flipping from making a statement that he is aware of theoretically. Again, I'm trying to accept his initial premise here that he's aware of information inside of the investigation that the public isn't. And then he's going into the I statement. I am aware of this. I am aware of that. I have been told this. So, and he's not really talking in terms of this inside information of the investigation, because a lot of what he's talking about is public knowledge.
The weapon used was a long serrated-edged hunting knife with a fixed blade. The weapon had not been in the house. The person brought it with them and took it when they left.
Now, if somebody was inside the investigation and they gave him that level of detail, I would be really, really questioning this guy if it was true. If they thought it was true, I'm sure the authorities have looked at this. But how would he know, and how would the investigators know, and this is earlier in the investigation when this came out, whether the knife had been in the house or not prior? How would they know that? That would take a while to establish.
The 2 victims were on the same bed, not side by side. One victim was found on top of the other.
This business about whether the girls were in the bed together or not seems really important to this TikToker, and how they were positioned and so on. That seems to be really important to him.
The reason is that the one tried to escape and was grabbed, harmed, and then shoved and fell on top of her friend.
So here again, he's saying she was harmed. The second victim was trying to escape. He's reiterating his story here that he may or may not know because he has a relative inside of the investigation feeding him this information. But he's repeating it, and it's really important. Why do you think this detail is important to this TikToker?
That is why there's a lot of blood mixtures on this at the scene.
So he's saying that's so it's important to him. I'm just filling in the blanks here. It's important to him that one of the girls ended up on top of the other girls because that's why there's blood mixture. Well, I think we all could understand without that why there might be blood mixture when you're murdering 4 people at once.
They're also desperately looking for this white car. The reason being is that it was seen speeding by an A&W gas, I think A&W gas station. I don't even know what that is, but anyway, that's, again, it could be wrong. I was just told it was seen speeding by an A&W gas station. So
he's saying, again, this is kind of public information about where the footage was with the gas station. And I don't know the timing of this TikTok video, if that was before, after that this surfaced, the TikTok video surfaced before or after it became fairly public knowledge that there was a gas station attendant who found footage of that, and he's pretending or implying that he does not know what an A&W gas station is. I don't either. That actually sounded somewhat truthful to me.
/hangout at 3:45. Now, if the screen was recorded at 3:38 and the car sped by at 3:45, it's a very tight time frame, but it is possible that the person left immediately and rushed and was seen speeding by.
So this is interesting. Now he's theorizing, and he doesn't seem to be saying, hey, my cousin said this, or my source inside of the investigation said that. This sounds to me very much like this person thinking this through on his own and theorizing about the timing of the gas station video and the scream.
Also, the scream may have been what caused the person to quickly leave. That scream could have been what saved the other 2 roommates' lives.
Did you hear how he drew that out? That could have been what saved the other 2 persons' lives. Okay, so that's not only showing possibly that he's got a little bit of a Southern accent going on there, but also that he feels like this is important and that he's a sensitive guy, and that could have saved their lives, right? And so that's very interesting. And again, theorizing that the scream, this is quite some theory here. Again, he's going beyond what he might have learned from the investigation had he learned something from a relative who was actually involved in the investigation. So this is kind of going above and beyond what you might want to share if you were inclined to share private information like that.
The person knew that they might be detected, so they sped away. Again, this is all just rumor.
Okay, now he's saying it's rumor. It sounds to me like he's theorizing himself. Okay, I'm theorizing that this person might have heard the scream and it stopped him from killing everybody in the house, and then he was caught on the gas station video. He's calling it rumor. He's not saying this is what I learned from my contact inside the investigation. He's now talking about rumor. So there's another thing to think about.
Take it for what it is.
We are definitely taking it for what it is. Thank you for your permission.
I just pray for these young people. I hope they rest in peace and that their families can find peace after this horrible crime. And I hope that the person who committed it can be brought to justice.
So we do too. And if it happened to be that the person recording this TikTok video was the same person who committed the crime, well, you're really special, aren't you? I mean, so those are my thoughts on that TikTok video. Again, I'm just sharing the audio part. If you want to hear the entirety of it. It's all over Twitter, Facebook, obviously TikTok and whatnot, if it hasn't been taken down on TikTok, but it's already permanently on the record. So I would like to hear what you think about where I stopped and started and where you think this story goes awry. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play it start to finish real quick for those who want to hear it, so you don't have to go somewhere else.
I just want to let you know that I'm a relative of someone inside the investigation into the quadruple homicide in Idaho. I don't want to be any more specific than that because I don't want to put anybody in a challenging or contentious situation regarding their continued employment. And I will say what I'm about to tell you is secondhand, but it is from what I believe to be a very reliable source. Again, this can only be considered a rumor as I don't have firsthand knowledge. I never planned on posting any of this information out of respect for the victims' families. However, now that one of the victims' fathers has released some of the gruesome details himself, I'd like to share some of the investigative theory. As you know, the two women were found in the same bed, but with similar wounds. That's what's being reported. That's not exactly 100% true, at least in regard to the fact that they hadn't fallen to sleep in the same bed. One of the victim's wounds were deep gouges that were delivered with extremely aggressive force, so much so that the victim's liver and lungs were destroyed. Here's the theory that's happening. They definitely think it was a man because of the force of the wounds. The murked person must have been very strong. They think the man came into the room after doing what they did on the second floor. They went upstairs. The person cleanly and quietly unalived the first victim. The second victim awoke and tried to run. They believe that the man possibly grabbed her, and she screamed loudly, apparently. The man then harmed her, and the reason the wounds were of such force, he was delivering it quickly and forcibly to quiet her, which I apologize for how I know it's disturbing, but anyway, how do we know that she screamed? Because 3 individuals reported hearing a scream between 3:45 and 4 o'clock. That's why the police have such a specific time frame as to when the murders occurred. Because I don't know if you noticed, but the authorities weren't called the next day until late in the morning, yet they had a very specific time frame when the murder happened. They think the scream is why. And after reviewing video files from the neighborhood, they reviewed security cameras in the area, and they have an audio file I haven't heard it, but I was told that you can clearly hear a loud scream from a female. That scream was recorded at exactly 3:38 a.m. Neighbors say they didn't call the police because they said there's often loud noise coming from the house. I was told that there are parties there all the time. Again, I don't know if that's true, but it's what I was told. The weapon used was a long serrated-edged hunting knife with a fixed blade. The weapon had not been in the house. The person brought it with them and took it when they left. The 2 victims were on the same bed, not side by side. One victim was found on top of the other. The reason is that the one tried to escape and was grabbed, harmed, and then shoved and fell on top of her friend. That is why there's a lot of blood mixtures at the scene. They're also desperately looking for this white car. The reason being is that it was seen speeding by an A&W gas station. I don't even know what that is, but anyway, again, it could be wrong. I was just told it was seen speeding by an A&W gas station / hangout at 3:45. Now, if the scream was recorded at 3:38 and the car sped by at 3:45, it's a very tight time frame, but it is possible that the person left immediately and rushed in with seen speeding by. Also, the scream may have been what caused the person to quickly leave. That scream could have been what saved the other two roommates' lives. The person knew that they might be detected, so they sped away. Again, this is all just rumor. Take it for what it is. I just pray for these young people. I hope they rest in peace and that they're...
Okay. This one's a little hard to take listening to. I don't want to watch it too many times, and I certainly don't want to listen to it too many times. Again, he said the man who harmed her, or the man who harmed at one point, not the killer, not the perpetrator, the man who harmed, not stabbed, not murdered, not took away their precious life, none of those things. So this person does seem to be somewhat clinical. The other thing I just want to say is, I don't know how about you in your life, but I know how rumors work. And he's going from describing what he learned from someone inside of the investigation, which should be credible information. So I'm not sure why he's trying to downplay and call this rumor. Now, obviously, we know that there's firsthand information and secondhand information. He could have used that terminology. He seems somewhat well enough educated to be using that terminology, but to call it rumor straight out is just very odd. If somebody tells me something and they say it's a rumor, I am not going to pay at all any attention to it. So with that, I'm going to stop paying attention to this. I find it was interesting. I do think it's important to really listen to what people say in our lives, what they don't say, and how they say it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And I hope this is of interest to you. And if it's not, well, I'm sure you'll let me know. And if it is, I would like to hear your comments read your comments underneath and in the live chat when this premieres. I thought I'd do this while, again, it was fresh in my mind before I get too tainted with anything else that I might hear in the next few days, now that they have apprehended a suspect and they are extraditing him to Idaho. We'll find out what the probable cause is, and we'll find out more things. And my mind will be somewhere else, as I'm sure yours will. So with that, can't wait to hear from you. Hope you enjoyed.